What's up guys, welcome back. In this tutorial, we are gonna talk about Flex containers properties that deal with alignments. The first property is justify content. It aligns the Flex items when there are empty spaces on the main axis. Empty spaces is like this blank space here, so when I increase the width of the browser, you can see the empty spaces increase. Now, by default, the value of justify content is flex start, where items line up starting from the main start of the container. Because currently we are using the default value of flex direction, which is row. Therefore, items line up starting from the left-hand side. Now let's switch to the CSS file and show you the concept. So let's say justify content equals to flex start. Now save the file and let's refresh the browser. You can see there's no changes because that's the default value. Same idea applies. When flex direction is set to column, the beginning is the top of this container. This applies to row reverse and column reverse as well. I'm gonna let you guys try this out on your own. The best way to learn programming is to get your hands dirty. You're gonna learn much more if you try to experiment with stuff that you learn. Apart from flex start, you can also do flex end, which moves the items toward the end of the container. Let's try flex end and save it, switch to the browser and refresh. So now you can see the stack of items sticks to the right hand side, while item 1 is still on top of the stack. It's also possible to align the items to the center. So let's switch back to the editor and say center. The value center aligns the items to the center of the container. So when we refresh the page, the contents is now placed at the center of the container. Flexbox also provides additional values to control how the extra space in the container are to be distributed. What I say by extra space are these two spaces. The value space between takes the extra space and add them between items. So let's try this out. Space between. Let's save it, go to the browser and refresh. If you want to have some space before the first item and after the last item, you may use space around instead. Let's switch back to the file and space around, save it and refresh. Now I'm gonna increase the width of the browser so that you can see better. Notice that space at the beginning and at the end is about half of the other spaces in between items. For example, if the space between items is 100 pixels, then the spaces on two ends, here and here, will be 50 pixels. However, if you want all the spaces to be of the same length, you can use space evenly instead. Now go to the CSS file and type space evenly. Save the files and go to the browser and refresh. Try to pause the video and play with this property a little bit before proceeding to the next property. Next, we will be looking at the align items property. It aligns the flex items when there are empty spaces on the cross axis, which means it works just like justify content, but in a perpendicular direction. To see how it works, we give the container a height. Let's first of all delete this line and give it a height. Let's say 400 pixels. Save it. And go to the browser and refresh. The default value of align items is stretch. Items stretch the whole height, which is the height of the container. Now let's go back to the CSS file and give the value explicitly stretch. Control S, and switch back to the browser and refresh. You can see there's no change because stretch is the default value. However, if we change it to flex start, and let's go back to the browser and refresh. You can see originally when it is stretched, the items are stretched from the cross start to the cross end. If we change the value to flex start, you can see now all the items are pushed to the start of the cross axis. Similar to how flex end and center works in justify content, flex end and center in align items put the items to the end or to the bottom of the cross axis respectively. The last value I want to introduce is baseline. Let's look at this picture. The black solid line under the text of all the items is indicating the baseline. If the align item property is set to baseline, all the flex items content will sit right above the baseline. That's very useful when you want the content to light up. Now let's demonstrate this in the browser. Let's switch to the editor first. First, let's set align items to baseline. And for item 1 to 3, let's give each of them an additional property. For item 1, let's say padding top to 3 rem. For item 2, let's say padding bottom to 5. And item 3, I want a font size of, well, 4 would be fine. Let's save it and switch back to the browser and refresh. Now you can see although they have different properties, but all the content of all of the items are still sitting on the same baseline. The last property I would like to introduce in this tutorial is align content. This works only when there are multiple rows of flex items in the container. Otherwise, there will be no effect. Therefore, height and flex wrap needs to be set to ensure we have at least 2 lines. Align content is similar to align items, but instead of align flex items, it aligns flex lines. Flex line is a hypothetical line used for grouping and alignment of flex items inside a container. Flex lines are parallel to the main axis. Now don't worry if you don't know what is a flex line yet, I will show you later. For now, just bear with me. A flex container can be either single line or multi-line, depending on the flex wrap property. Let me show you some example. First, let's delete align items first because we don't need it now. Also, we're gonna delete the specific attributes for item 1 through 3. Also remember, to make this work, we need to set the flex wrap to wrap or wrap reverse. So save it and switch back to the browser, and now we refresh. By default, the value of align content is stretch. All flex lines stretch as tall as possible to fill up the full height. Now, you can see what I mean by flex line is a single line of items. Currently in this screen we have only one line. If we decrease the width of the browser, now there are two flex lines here. That's what I mean by flex lines. If we decrease the width further, you can see now line 1 is containing item 1 to 4, and line 2 is containing 5 and 6. Now let me show you the default value is stretch. Let's go back to the editor and let's add align content to stretch. Save it, switch to the browser and refresh. You can see there's no change. Now, the next value is flex start. It pushes flex lines to the top instead of stretching to the whole height. Let me show you. So, to flex start, save it and go back to the browser, and now we refresh. You can see they are now pushed to the top. The next value available, surprise, is flex end, and save it, and let me show you in the browser. Now they are pushed to the bottom of the container. And not surprising, you can also put all the flex lines to the middle of the container. And the value to achieve this is center. Let's go back to the CSS file and set it to center. Ctrl S or Command S on iOS. Let's show you the browser and refresh. Can see now all the items are in the middle of the container. The next value available is space between. So let's switch back to the editor and try it out. Space between. And go to the browser and refresh. So now all the empty space are distributed between two lines. And the next value we want to try, let's see, it should be space around. Save it, go to the browser and refresh. Space around will place spaces at both ends, but their height equals to half of the space between the items. So if the space here is 50 at both ends, then the space between items will be 100 pixels. The last value available is space evenly. It works pretty much in a similar way as it does in justify content. I'm gonna just let you try this out on your own. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you have learned a lot about how Flexbox works already. Later at the end of this series, I will teach you guys how Flexbox is used in the real world by building fantastic UI using Flexbox. If anyone has any questions about what I have explained in this video, feel free to ask in the comment section. I will do my best to answer those. And if you'd like this video and would like to support that, the easiest way is to like this video and follow my channel. Also, share this video to anyone who might find it useful. That's it for today, and I will see you in the next tutorial.